All right. Thanks for tuning in to Eagles Brawl of the Brawl Network. However, you're tuning in right now, you're either on Facebook Live, Twitch, Periscope, YouTube, wherever you're getting the live show. We greatly appreciate it. Co host Connor Miles here with Tyler Steggy in the house. We also have our Eagles Brawl insider, Ed Kracz, joining us for this live show. And then we also have a special guest also joining as well, the host of Philly Sports with Giovanni Hamilton. And before we start this show off, I have to play one thing that I have to have the whole audience here because I don't know if anybody's heard it yet enough. Giovanni was on CBS Texas or Dallas, whatever, and he had an interview about his video with Dak Prescott. So I'm going to play the video for everybody to hear because this was awesome.
It's not natural for an Eagles fan to like anything about the Dallas Cowboys. But what, if anything, did you see that made you feel some empathy and sympathy for him?
He's just playing football. It's nothing personal against him. It's just he's a human being too. It's just he's on the wrong team.
He's on the wrong team, ladies and gentlemen. Giovanni of Eagles fan base went on in Texas and told them that Dak Prescott plays on the wrong team. That is what you like to hear. That you can't rep a fan base any better than Giovanni does. Also,
but he did it in a very mature fashion. You know, he's right. He's a human being. You know, so what if he wears he wears the wrong laundry? It's not his fault, right? I mean, he's a human. We don't wish injury on anybody.
No, not at all. That video was incredibly touching, and you're rightfully so going viral for it. But that was an awesome response to get to them. And we're also going to give away a Darius Slay jersey tonight for the best question. Whoever asks us the best question, we will decide at the end of the night, whoever it was. And you get a Darius Slay jersey. So big night. And we got, wow, look who even tuned in. We got Kiana over here. What's going on, Kiana? And she goes, it's Gio. See, everybody's hyped to see Giovanni. He's making his first appearance for the live show. Let's get into football, guys. Let's talk birds. Giovanni said it himself best, Ed. He recorded with Derek Gunn, and the first thing he says to Derek Gunn was, Travis Fulgham is a gift from the football gods. I think that's how Philadelphia is feeling this week. We're really big on Travis Fulgham. He stepped up big time. Ed, what did you think, man? I know you had to be shocked.
Well, I can't put it any better than that. He's a gift from the football gods. That's awesome, man. That's a great way to put it. Certainly caught me by surprise. I mean, he's been with two teams before he came to Philadelphia. He was drafted by the Lions from Old Dominion, which isn't exactly a football factory. It's not Alabama or Oklahoma or Penn State. And the Packers cut him, never played a game, and I never would have guessed he could have 10 catches in the game. Just amazing. I mean, everything. I mean, he was open on some of those, so he's running good routes, but he also made some pretty tough contested catches too. And, you hope that the sky's the limit for this guy, and he's only scratching the surface. But now that there's some film out there on him, and you look at the Eagles' other weapons, it would help if they could get Deshaun Jackson back to kind of take some of the heat away from Fulgham, because now people know who he is. And things might get a little bit more tougher for him. But I still think he's good enough. He's talented enough. He's 6'2", 215. He's got a good skill set. I think, we're going to see, some more good things from him in the future.
So you wrote last week, actually, before anybody even suggested it, like, why don't we just move off the Deshaun Jackson, Alshon Jeffrey era and start working in these young guys? I think a lot of us are starting to feel that way. Greg Ward, I mean, the box score's not showing up, but he looks pretty good. And Travis Fulgham said the big time, when they get Jalen Reagor back, that's an even more boost. John Hightower looks good running routes. Still some rookie mistakes from him, but yeah. I agree with you, Ed. I think rock with the young guys. See what the young guys got.
I absolutely agree. What do you think, Gio? What do you think? I think that's probably true, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think Alshon Jeffrey did us a lot of good, but we don't know if he's reliable now. Same with Deshaun, because Deshaun gets hurt fast, and yeah, I think we should rock with the new guys.
Yeah,
That's
I agree.
That's pretty good. That's
That's
I mean, I know
excellent.
Tyler's over there like, Deshaun would really help right now, but that's a fair analyst, I think, because look, these guys could be the future. I don't know if Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun have a future here past next year, so I think that's what the logic that goes into that thinking. But Tyler, I mean, do you have some thoughts on that? You're shaking your head over there. I think you do.
I'm
have
not
some
shaking
things
my
going.
head. Like,
I think
don't create some drama, man. No, no. I mean, I actually agree with everything. I mean, I still think there's a role for Deshaun. I'm very adamant about that. I think when he comes back, I have no interest in Alshon. I think Fulgham and what Ed hit on, and I think the biggest thing, because a lot of people are questioning. I mean, he had 10 catches, so you have to question, like, hey, was this fluky or not? The cool thing is he got a lot of his production from the slot, and when you're 6'2", 15. There's not going to be a lot of nickel corners who can get a hand on you. And I do think after watching his catches, I think he is going to struggle getting off press coverage. But he's not going to see a lot of press coverage from the slot. And so I think his understanding of route concepts, and you saw the trust form with Wentz. Fulgham is, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. And then, yeah, I mean, what Key's saying, I mean, yeah, I love Deshaun too, and I mean, when he's on the field, he's electric, man. He's what he does for a defense and what he makes a defense do and show and respect, and open up for your offense. It's just kind of unmatched. And so, I mean, the idea of pairing Deshaun with a Fulgham, even for just this year, and yes, I'm thinking just short term, because obviously they're not going to cut Deshaun and cut Alshon, so there needs to be a role painted out. So I'm excited to see what the receiver position does. It seems like there's some versatility in a sense.
Yeah,
I like this. Fulgham and Wentz have wonderful chemistry. I thought that was a huge thing too, because if we rewind, and we talked about this on Philly Sports with Giovanni, if you rewind to that against the 49ers, Deontay Johnson was holding Fulgham on that touchdown catch a little bit, and that was an anticipation throw all the way. Wentz trusted his guy to go up and make the catch. He did. He got the touchdown. Ever since he goes into that Pittsburgh game, that's the guy he trusts right away. He's putting passes that we've seen like in 2017 type accuracy. I think Travis Fulgham and Carson Wentz, you got to ride the hot hand. I think at this point in Carson Wentz's career, you haven't had a consistent wide receiver to lean on. You just haven't. It's always somebody in and out. Ride the hot hand while you have it. Continue to go with the guy that's making the plays, and until it doesn't work anymore. So I'm complete with this. It's the chemistry that they have is insane already, especially given this offseason. We talked about it. This season. We talked about it numerous times on the show. These guys aren't getting the same camaraderie that they've used to be afforded to.
It's only he was here. When was he signed, Ed? Like the 6th of October?
When Fulgham, no, he came to camp on August 20th.
Oh wow, okay.
3 days after phase 3 started. When we were allowed to watch practice, it was August 17th, which was a Monday, and then all of a sudden we come out to practice 3 days later, and we're like, who's this guy? Who's this really tall guy? So we had to go to the PR people and ask who he was, and they said it was Travis Fulgham, and we're like, okay, he's going to get cut. He's just a body. He's just here to catch passes, and sure enough, he was cut, but they brought him back. And
maybe that's the date that I remember is the 6th when he was activated or something.
Yeah, I mean, I could look. He's been. I think
he was cut, and then he brought back to the practice squad, and then you're thinking of like the day where they brought him up from the practice squad.
Yeah, that's probably it. I could probably find that here quick, but when you talk about what he did in Pittsburgh, Mike Tomlin, the Pittsburgh coach, talked about him after the game. Wasn't even prompted. He brought up his number 13, and then he was asked like, how well did he know him? How familiar with him was he? And he said, well, I knew him when he was at Old Dominion because Tomlin's a Virginia boy. But he said, globally, we didn't really know him, didn't know anything about his resume. So he caught the Steelers off guard. There's no doubt. And that's not going to happen again going forward. So we're going to see, just how sharp this chemistry is and, how much ceiling Fulgham has. He was signed from the practice squad on October 3rd. You're right, Tyler. So in October, he was signed from the practice squad.
I just think for the people questioning whether it was fluky or not, if you look at like last year with Deontay Burnett and Greg Ward, despite the success that Wentz had, it still wasn't anything like this connection in Pittsburgh. And it's not like Pittsburgh has just a a crappy secondary. I mean, there's Joe Hayden. I mean, it's respectable. So I think the connection, and again, what Keith said, I mean, the connection there is, you can tell Wentz is already saying, hey, like, that 3rd and 17 opposite hash was absolutely nuts. I mean, that's something that you saw with him with Deshaun in week 1 against Washington last year. I mean, that is trust. And I think that's what Wentz has lacked the most is, yes, there's lack of talent and everything, but he just needs a guy that he can rely on. And the fact that he was relying on a Greg Ward last year, it says a lot. So to have a guy as talented and as big as Fulgham is huge.
Yeah. Well, that's what I liked about him too, is he made, I mean, that throw you're talking about, Tyler, he was open. He got open on that. But what I like about Fulgham and why I think it's not a fluke is the way he's able to make those contested catches. I mean, he uses his body pretty well to keep the defender kind of away from him. And he goes up and he gets the ball. The ball just looks like it sticks to his hands, which is something we haven't seen a whole lot from, these 24 receivers that Wentz has thrown to these last 2 years. I mean, he's thrown to 24 different receivers in the last 2 years. I mean, that's crazy when you think about it. And that's why we're all excited about Fulgham, because finally we think, okay, now we have something here. Let's see if we can build on it.
So do you think Jalen Hurts should get some consideration at QB1 or?
Where'd that come from?
I'm so glad we're off that conversation. Like, I'm so glad that's not even here anymore. Like, Wentz is here to stay, man. He's played so well. That game against Pittsburgh, man. Gio, did you watch? I mean, what do you think of Wentz? Do you think he's improved?
Yeah, he's improved. Like me and Connor talked about earlier, I think towards the beginning of the season, I think he was hurt. As you can see in these past few games, he's been rolling out and running more.
I mean, it's the truth. I did question the groin injury to begin to start out because he wasn't moving out of the pocket. He looked like he was afraid of contact, afraid to get hit. Now he just looks like he's playing like himself. He's playing the way Carson Wentz expects him to play. But I got to tell you guys, I think this is becoming the Travis Fulgham brawl. I'm reading the comment section. I'm trying to switch up questions between, but it's all
it's
Travis
exciting,
Fulgham.
Man. I mean, think about we've been deprived. Since 2017.
Jeremy Maclin was the last wide receiver to post a stat line like that. I mean, I know Deshaun went off Washington week 1, but I mean, 10 catches for 152 yards is a Jeremy Maclin type stat line.
It's exciting. I mean, when it's
exciting because you could possibly have your future X. This team has been struggling to find out the future X. It was supposed to be J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. We were completely terrified now because we don't know who it is. Then this kid comes up, catches a clutch touchdown against San Francisco, and then he goes into Pittsburgh. Nobody knows who. People still don't even know what number he was. And like he's saying right here, that pass over the middle was insane. Yeah, the contested catches, that's talent. That's talent. And then Carson Wentz trusts a guy. You saw what happened last year, Greg Ward. When he started to trust a guy, he went heavily to Greg Ward. That's going to be Travis Fulgham for these next couple games. Even with Alshon and Deshaun coming back, Ed, I know we'll get into the press conference today. I'm not worried about Doug Peterson's comments at all because Carson Wentz usually does the opposite of what he says anyways. They're always talking up J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. Never see Carson Wentz really target him anyways on game day. So really, I'm not concerned about Alshon Jeffrey coming back. I'm not concerned about Deshaun Jackson coming back. Jalen Reagor, I think, is going to be a good boost, and then that's the youth you want Carson Wentz to build a repertoire with. But as this season goes on, as these games continue to go on, these next couple games, it's the Travis Fulgham show, and Carson Wentz to continue riding them. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, and you mentioned Reagor. I mean, I think Reagor is due back probably after the bye, which means three more games. Maybe he comes back November 1st for the Cowboys. I doubt it. They have 3 more games to the bye, and they're all at home. Baltimore, the Giants on a short week Thursday, and then the Cowboys. So I think Reagor will be back after that. I think Deshaun will be back sooner. I'm not so sure about Alshon. I mean, at practice today, it was interesting to see Deshaun Jackson was the first one in the receiver rep line when they were doing the individual drills, which is all we're allowed to watch.
Insider info
each time, which to me is kind of an indication that he's probably going to come back, and maybe he's coming back Sunday. Alshon, though, on the other side of it, he was the very last guy in line in the receiver drills, which shows, that indicates to me he's probably not ready. And Fulgham was second in those receiver drills. It was Deshaun, Travis, and then I think Greg Ward was third, and then JJ was fourth. And Hightower was in the mix there. But to me, it was always Jackson first, Jeffrey last. And that shows me a little something that it could be Jackson ready to come back against Baltimore on Sunday.
Can I ask Ed something?
Yeah.
Ed, do you think that what? He's tired of me. Do you think that it's always a pleasure, by the way. I took work off because I heard you and Gio were on tonight. I was like, man, I got to get on. That's a lie.
I am honored to be on with Gio, to be honest. I love it, man. You look great. You look great too, Gio.
Dude, the green room is just bonkers. Yeah, by the way, it's just bonkers. So awesome. He just pre-show. He just goes, "Hey, by the way, I'm ready," and it just turns green. Like,
that's the coolest thing ever. I wish everybody saw that.
Flexing on me, man. Sheesh. But
go ahead. What's your question?
My question is, do you think that, because I saw somebody ask about Zach Ertz, and I think that he's still getting open, but I do think that he's had some letdowns this year. Do you think that he's letting the contract negotiations affect his play?
I think Zach is very unhappy, and I think that shows itself in his body language. I mean, he just, and I think his teammates see that. I mean, you watch him in the games, and he just looks frustrated. He just doesn't look himself. And I'll say this again about practice today. As we were leaving, when we were being escorted out, Zach caught a pass deep down the middle, against air. But then he just kind of he walked very slowly back to the line of scrimmage from the end zone, about 40 yards away. He just kind of looked real slow. And then he got to the line. He took his helmet off. Meanwhile, a lot of guys are catching those passes and running back to the line of scrimmage. But, I just think his body language just shows you how unhappy he is. And, look, I think Zach has been a great representative for the Philadelphia Eagles for the last, 7, 8 years, I guess 8 years since he's been here. And it just, to me, it looks like it's run its course, and he's just not happy and he wants to be gone. And you wonder how much that's impacting the rest of the team because, he's a pretty popular player in the locker room, and his teammates see what's going on. And, you see what's happening there, and they probably feel badly for him. And maybe some of that negative energy that he's emitting, whether he realizes it or not, is affecting the team.
Yeah. And the frustrating thing is that's kind of, you just took everything. It's noticeable on the TV broadcast.
Yeah.
Like when you watch Zach Ertz, he looks like he's just
nobody has brought up that practice thing though. That's the first I heard that today.
Well, today. It was just today that I noticed. And you don't see a whole lot of practice because they don't show you a whole lot. They do show you some special installs, which are kind of interesting. We've been able to see some of the installs that they do, and they've used them in game. For instance, that jet sweep that Adrian Killens ran a couple weeks ago, they did that during practice. We're not allowed to talk about them or tweet them or anything like that. But they did have that install a couple weeks ago, and it lost 12 yards against San Francisco. So today, I can't say what I saw, but there's some interesting twists that the last 2 weeks when we've seen some of these installs, they've used them in games. So I expect to see a little bit of what we saw today during these installs. But that Zach Ertz thing with the body language today was something I noticed as we were walking out, and Zach was 10 yards away from me as I was coming behind the end zone, and he just kind of walked, very, very slow walk back to the line of scrimmage. Just kind of, didn't really seem like he was with it.
I think it says a lot. I don't know if you guys remember the play against Pittsburgh, but it was the throw when Wentz escaped and he threw to Fulgham and he almost dropped it, but he ended up catching it. Yeah. And I take every TV broadcast with a grain of salt, but they mentioned that. They said, hey, he normally goes to Ertz here and he decided to go to Fulgham. I think that says a lot. And I think you're seeing it on Ertz's body language, which is crap. I'm all about players first and getting your money. But once the season started, man, and there was an offer, and at this point it's done. You got to produce now. The negotiations are over, and it's a little frustrating to see him. It is apparent. It is visual. You could see it. And I wanted to get your I get your view on that.
I agree. And you wonder how this season's going to impact his, his desire to get out of town or whatever the trade possibility might be. You wonder if teams will look at him and say, does he have anything left? Because right now it doesn't really look like he has anything left. I'm pretty sure he does. It's just this whole contract thing and his unhappiness with what's going on is weighing him down. I don't think his skill set is eroded any. I just think that his heart might not be into it.
Completely agree.
So I guess for the question on the screen, we all agree. Last year in Philly for yeah. We're all in
It looks
agreement
that
on
way. And if you asked me 4 months ago, I would have said hell no. But it looks that way, which is nuts.
It's looking that way.
Well,
I don't want it to be the end of the Zach Ertz era.
I know we don't. I really don't either. I don't know if I can fully, honestly, and this isn't even from a fan's point of view. The guy is a high possession receiver. He's the most reliable target through and through. He's the only receiver that the defenses really take seriously. I know San Francisco didn't do anything crazy against him like people keep pointing to, but they had Fred Warner and Quan Alexander. They didn't need to. Those guys are really good coverage linebackers. Pittsburgh, Micah Fitzpatrick was all over him all day long. It's a really great safety. So, it's a shame. I think it's the whole situation's a shame, but I think he's a really great player, and it's hard to lose him.
Hang on to those memories, Gio. I don't know how far back you remember. You probably remember the Super Bowl year.
Yeah.
So just hang on to those memories, man. Zach's still going to be around. He might not be wearing the Eagle green anymore, but you can still be a fan of his. He might be with another team. You can watch him and still root for him. Even though he's not wearing the right color laundry like Dak Prescott, you can still root for him and still remember what he did for the Philadelphia Eagles for his time here.
Yeah.
Giovanni actually has Nick Ertz, his brother, on his show on Friday from Philly Sports with Giovanni. So he actually did an interview with him so that you guys can check that out everywhere for our podcast. But, Ed, I actually have the question to ask you real quick. So I know Giovanni has to get off soon. I want him to hear this question. But you and I heard some things about Lane Johnson. It hasn't really come out that way besides what you reported for Sports Illustrated. Is there a chance it's a broken shin, or are we is that the second opinion came back and it's all good, there's no broken shin? Because you and I both heard it at the same time, and then I texted you just to make sure before I thought anything. And we're waiting on the second opinion. Have you heard anything else?
That's my understanding. Is there's no surgery that's going to be needed, but he needs to shut down and rest this thing. The shin. I can't say for sure it's fine. I think there is an issue there, but I don't think it's a surgery type of an issue. I don't think it's a cast, 6-week type of an issue. I think what Lane needs, and my understanding is he just needs rest, and that playing through this is no longer an option because it's becoming more and more difficult for him to push off of that ankle. And now you throw whatever shin issue is in there. It's just not feasible. And Doug Peterson said today that he's still in the day-to-day realm, which to me is just, I don't know, not smart, I don't think. I think you have to do what's best for the player. Lane Johnson is as tough as they come, and he's going to want to play through no matter what the injury is, right? So you're the coach, man. You're the one in charge. You're the medical staff. You have to say, no, you can't play because of this, and you got to shut him down. You got to rest him. But they did make Jack Driscoll available on the Zoom with reporters today, which was interesting, which kind of indicates to me that maybe they've kind of surrendered to the idea that Lane needs time off, and they're throwing Jack out there to answer questions about, how his season's going. So I suspect that he's going to probably sit at least for Baltimore. And if you're going to sit him for Baltimore, you play 4 days later. Why not rest him for the Giants game too?
Just go to the bye.
Hopefully November 1st against the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Jack Driscoll's playing fine. I have no problem with that. Yeah, I think Jack Driscoll honestly is better than. It's kind of soon to say this, but he
Andre
looks
Dillard?
like he could be. No, not Andre Dillard. He looks like he could be even more serviceable than Big V was. Jack Driscoll looks good. I have no problem with Jack Driscoll playing. I think it's better for Lane, anyways.
All right, guys, I gotta get off.
Hey, you got
homework,
Giovanni? Gio, you got homework?
No, I gotta go to bed.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, good seeing you. Let's do this again sometime.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Gio,
I'll
you're
do
definitely
that
coming on the
next
live
time.
shows from now on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, Gio. We'll see you,
All
buddy.
right. Good luck to whoever wins that jersey.
There you go, buddy. Good job.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
All right, so
what a great kid.
He is a great kid. But Jordan Mailata and Jack Driscoll are crushing it. I absolutely agree. And Jeff Stoutland is going to put the guy in the best position no matter what. I think the best thing for Lane to do, because I honestly think that, I trust who I was told. And then I went to you and you coincidentally heard the same thing. If there's anything wrong with the shin, dude, I shut him down.
I'm trying to put together, how can you mistake a broken shin for an ankle? It's got to be a high ankle sprain.
But he's always had
that would be
ankle.
The only alternative.
He had an ankle. There was an ankle issue going into before this injury even happened, though, in Pittsburgh.
But a high ankle sprain could be worse than a broken shin, right?
Well, he had the surgery. The surgery he had in August, that tightrope surgery it was called, was designed to help the healing of a high ankle sprain. That's what tightrope
probably came back, and then he just go ahead.
I think that messed him up, man. I think that surgery in August is what is causing the problem. There's a high risk of infection. He had a cyst drained. He had 6 cc's of fluid pulled out of a cyst the day after the Cincinnati Bengals game. To me, if you have a high ankle sprain, you could miss 6 weeks, 7 weeks. But if you just ride with it like he had in August, he might be healthy by now if he didn't have that surgery. But he had the surgery. To me, it just hasn't healed the way it's supposed to. He went to get his second opinion came from Robert Anderson, Dr. Anderson in Green Bay, who is a renowned foot and ankle guy. He's operated on high-profile athletes in the past in that area. So that's still the issue. It's still the ankle, I think, more than the shin. And the only way it's going to get better, he's been in and out of games every start that he's made, and that doesn't do him any favors, the team any favors, and especially Jack Driscoll any favors, because it's tough to come in cold. Driscoll, I prepare like I'm a starter all the time, but okay, it's great to prepare, but then you're sitting on the bench and you're trying to stay in it mentally, and the next thing you know, you're trotting into the game with no rhythm, no flow. That's tough, and that doesn't do him any favors as a rookie to bring him into that situation. To me, it makes the most sense to do what's right by Lane, shut him down, get him help as well as you can, and let Driscoll start. Know that he's the starter on Wednesday rather than, Sunday in the second quarter. Okay, hey, you got to go out because Lane's coming off.
Yeah, and everything in football is rhythm. Like everything is rhythm. And so bringing guys in and out of a lineup is just not going to do any good. So, I just don't understand with Driscoll showing what he did week 1 against Washington, why not be careful with Lane? And I know it's easy for fans because we're all tired of this, the injuries lingering for the last 3 years. It's frustrating, but we're not there. We don't know the details. So it's very easy to criticize, but we don't know it. We don't know the details, but it is, like you said, it's frustrating. I don't know. I don't understand. I want to plan in place.
Here's what it could be. Is it's hard to get your head around the fact that when you look at the Eagles' offensive line, you have Jordan Mailata, Nate Herbig, Matt Pryor, and now Jack Driscoll. And when you're a coach and you're the staff and you're thinking, my God, we had Brandon Brooks, we had Jason Peters, we had Andre Dillard, we had all these guys healthy, Lane Johnson, and now look, we got all these young guys out there. It's hard to get your head around that. So they're probably hoping, hey, at least Lane gives us a little stability. And I would love if it was Driscoll lined up next to Brooks rather than Driscoll lined up next to Matt Pryor, who I don't think is really kind of coming along as well.
He's been awful. Matt Pryor has been bad. His play so far has shown me why they went to Nate Herbig over him immediately without hesitation.
And I think Driscoll would be the guard if he didn't have to play tackle. I think Driscoll would be your right guard.
If you can't thrive under Jeff Stoutland, you just aren't in the NFL. By the way, whatever he's making, he deserves double it, because that is maybe arguably the best position coach in the NFL. He's nuts. How is Jordan Mailata just turned into a serviceable starting left tackle, which is one of the hardest positions to learn. And then you have Jack Driscoll just stepping in and I saw somebody ask about Andre Dillard. The cool thing is you don't have to move on right now. Just relax.
Too early. Yeah. It's too early. I can't. anything that we answer right now is just a complete guess. I mean, especially with how this team is going at offensive tackle lately, with putting the backups in anyways. I don't think that they would make that decision then and there. It's just too early. But Ed, are you surprised about Jordan a lot of success? Because I'm for sure. I mean, I think we all are. But I'm surprised. He's still new to football. He's still fairly new to football.
I remember his first practice. He told us he had to figure out how to put his helmet on. He didn't even know how to put his helmet on. I mean, really, dude? I mean, he was serious. He didn't know how to put his helmet on. He had a shoulder pad. This is just 2018. So, it's funny. And Jordan, listen, Jordan to me is just a terrific person. And he's been blessed with size. I mean, 6'8", 346, and like Lane Johnson said last week on Zoom, if he's 340, he's not 346. He's bigger than 346. I mean, to get around him, you almost have to go to Australia and come back just to get around him if you're rushing the passer. I mean, that's how big that guy is. So I am very surprised, absolutely, at a lot of success. And I said to somebody today, he might be turning Andre Dillard into a guard, if he continues along, at this accelerated pace. He didn't play as well against the Steelers as he did the 49ers, but the Steelers' defensive front is one of the best in the NFL. And this week's going to be a challenge with the way the Ravens like to blitz their cornerbacks. It's going to be they're really going to have to hit the game plan hard and get up to speed on some of these blitzes Baltimore's going to throw at them. But after that, look, this is a growing process for him, and I like the way he's growing.
Dakota's asking, how did Hakeem Butler look so far? Actually, yeah, Ed, have you seen Hakeem Butler at practice? I was wondering how that was going.
Yeah, I saw him drop 2 passes today.
Right. So we're going to end that right now. All right, let's move on. Moving on. What? Yeah, this Miles Sanders. Yeah, that's enough. I already need to hear about anything else of that. That sounds bad already. Let's move on. Sorry, Dakota. That question's not going to count. So what's up with the Miles Sanders? Come on, man. How are we going to talk him up as a featured back at a press conference? Shout out to Ty Johnson saying he's bad. Did you see that, Ed? Did you see the 97.5?
It starts with the name, bro. The name has bad takes attached to it.
No, did you see that? He's ripping Miles Sanders.
Yeah, it was the guy that does the show for 97.5, Tyrone Johnson. Yeah, the Tyrone Johnson. He can't. He said Miles Sanders has been bad this season. I had to laugh before I said it.
The funniest thing.
I could not believe that, man. He literally said that, and then
there's so much blame to go around, but I never would be like, you know what, Miles Sanders deserves some blame. He just hasn't played bad at all. There's just so many other issues to worry about,
I will say, I think Miles needs help. I mean,
I agree.
They love that he's a 3-down back, but you look at Corey Clement has 11 rushes. Boston Scott has 18 rushes. And I had my hand raised in the Zoom meeting with Doug today. Didn't get called on. But I wanted to ask him, Doug's philosophy his whole time here has been this running back by committee approach. And he sold me on that approach because it keeps guys fresh. And I thought it's a great idea. Yeah, sure, rotate 2-3 backs in. Throw a curveball with a Boston Scott or a Darren Sproles. They don't have that. And I wanted to ask him, why the philosophical change? I mean, I know Sanders they view as a 3-down back, but that was a formula that worked for Doug and worked for this team. I mean, they won a Super Bowl with that running back committee approach. I don't understand why they got away from it. And I see this question here with Corey in Boston. I mean, Corey, I don't know if you saw against Pittsburgh. I mean, he whiffed on a pass block in the game.
I'm done with it. I think it's a waste of a roster spot at this point. Thanks for the Super Bowl, bud, but I mean, you're not contributing
He's the first player in NFL history to get worse with dreads.
Yeah.
Ever. Ed said yes. I got a quick yes out of Ed.
Actually, I am surprised that it took this long. It took 34 minutes for somebody to ask this question finally. Le'Veon Bell? Anybody?
Liberty Bell. Yeah.
Liberty Bell.
A vet needs to be here, and I agree. I agree with all of that. I mean, you can't say he's a 3-down back and then say he's fatigued at the end of the game. You can't. There needs to be.
He must be fatigued at every game then, because why are you using him like the featured back? You're saying in every press conference. They knew not to call on you today, Ed, because they knew you were going to ask about the running backs.
Well, and we had.
I watched the press conference today when it was live, and I think it was Tim McManus who asked about the running back room or adding to the running back room. And Doug immediately looks at him with a puzzled face saying, who said we're in the running back market?
Yeah, well, he did. Doug did.
Yeah, literally, he did. Yeah,
He
literally said it
missed
himself.
out on Carlos Hyde. But at this stage, I think bringing in Bell, Bell's a feature back. I'm not sure he would mesh well with Miles Sanders at this point.
Chicago's going to be all over him. I think Chicago's going to be all over on Le'Veon Bell. I've heard the Chiefs I've seen rumors on Twitter that the Chiefs have already been on him, but there's no way he wants to come here and play with Miles Sanders.
Here's what I would do. I would call Miami and see what they want for Jordan Howard. Howard was here last year. Jordan Howard was inactive.
There's no way Howie's doing that.
They're not even.
Howie would get just like killed for it. He would probably be fired from fans.
I know, but man, he was good here. He led the team in touchdowns last year with 7. He only played 10 games.
The guy he literally was perfect.
I'm about to say that's all he's doing in Miami right now is getting these goal line touchdowns.
But he didn't even play. He wasn't even active against the 49ers this past weekend.
Right.
He's not even in the lineup. This guy can. What the Eagles need to me is a hammer between the tackles that can soften up a defense, maybe wear it down in the fourth quarter, and they're not as anxious to make tackles, or they're too fatigued to get to a guy like Miles Sanders all of a sudden in space is faster because the defense is a little more worn down because you've given the ball 8 times to a hammer between the tackles like a Jordan Howard. Or I would even see what Elijah Holyfield can do. You're sitting there. He's sitting there on the practice squad. He had a great camp, in my opinion. He's a bigger back. He's a guy that they could use between the tackles. He's not a get outside and, like we saw Miles doing that 74-yard touchdown run. He doesn't have that skill set, but he can be serviceable to wear a defense down, give Miles a little bit more time on the bench to just watch a couple plays here and there, and then that makes Miles more effective. And if the defense is a little more worn down, that makes Miles even more effective.
Everybody hates. Go ahead, Connor.
I'd rather figure out if Holyfield can do it than give up an asset for a running back. Like, that's just not happening, in my opinion. You don't do that at all. And
I think the issue is, Ed just hit on it. All of these guys, even Sanders for being a bell cow, he's not a guy that is just going to punish defenders. And I think when you saw Blunt and Ajayi, those guys are like attacking defenses. And everybody hates like second and long runs by Doug. But like him being stubborn with that is like, it's going to have a long lasting effect on the football game. And I feel like the team's not getting that. It's like, if they're having pass success in the first half, they're not killing teams in the second half with a run game. And I think that also, we talked about it, plays into the offensive line with the injuries. But having a guy be able to pick up 4 or 5 yards rather than lose 2 because you're trying to shake in the backfield, it's just you have 3 guys who are very similar. I do think Sanders is obviously the better running back than both Boston Scott and Corey Clement, but as far as styles, I would love to see Holyfield too. Or anything, just somebody who's going to punish defenders, because Doug Peterson is a guy who runs the ball to open up the pass. At least he has in the past. And he doesn't have that ability now, because when Sanders is getting gassed, Boston Scott's that's probably like, if I were to, again, this is just off the top of the head, but if I were to make like a top 3 to 5 list of disappointing Eagles this season, Boston Scott is probably up there just because he's brought nothing from the backup running back position. Like has there been one moment or one run where you've been like, man, he's back?
No.
He's been really bad this year. And he showed a lot of flashes the last 4 weeks last year. And they put a lot of stock in that. And I think that's why they didn't bring in a vet. And when you have him underperforming, it's like, man, like you can't spell Miles Sanders. When he's not on the field, this team is one-dimensional. They're not running the ball.
Yeah, I agree. That's a big thing. I think they do need another running back. I've said that. I even took I think 3 episodes back now. I said, all right, I need to take my L for everybody to listen. They need another running back. If you don't feel Miles Sanders is fully healthy and you're worried about him long term at the end of the season, why don't you have another back that you can trust him? Because you're not like Ed, I think you said 18 carries for Boston Scott and 11 for Corey Clement. That's nothing. That's nothing.
No, not
for 2 guys. That's nothing.
To have the running back by committee approach. And to me, you could say Boston Scott's disappointing, but I don't think he's a change-up back. He's a change-up guy.
I'm not hating on him. Sorry. That wasn't my intent.
No, I know, but there's nothing to change up. I mean, the offense is the same. I mean, to me, Miles Sanders is a thoroughbred, man. He needs to get out and run. You need a plow horse that's going to blast through the middle and try to soften up that defense. Even if it's 1 yard, 2 yards, you need someone to do that, to hammer into a linebacker, into a D tackle, and maybe wear them down. And then the fourth quarter, then you can turn the thoroughbred loose and let him get out and run. And then all of a sudden he's faster than what he is because defenses are slower because they've been getting hammered by that up the middle back. I just think maybe they overvalued Scott, thinking he was more than he is. And if that's the case, then they don't understand the personnel. That's an Howie Roseman problem.
This is a good question that's coming up right here. What did the Eagles do in the offseason? Completely new coaching? Because I actually wanted to get into it now. Ed, are you all? I mean, Jim Schwartz, I think you got to move on from defensive coordinator and get a new one. I think they need a new voice in there.
He wasn't that bad against Pittsburgh. He wasn't that bad against Pittsburgh, man. He wasn't. I would love Ed's thoughts. I want to hear.
You don't think Schwartz was that bad?
I don't think so.
Why?
I think there were a lot of third downs that were missed. Like I counted 2 Cravon LeBlanc's missed tackles on 3rd and 4s. There was 1 3rd and 4, 1 3rd and 5. And then like just blatant missed tackles. Like he has a chance and he just doesn't wrap up players in the right position. And then the PIs on Darius Slay. One of them was a really bad call. And then you have Darius Slay against Chase Claypool, a rookie, and he does an out and up against Darius Slay on a 3rd down, and they pick up the 1st down. There was just a lot of I think Schwartz has not been great this year. I'm not saying that he's been good. But I do think the criticism, like with the Nate Gary, that's tough because I mean that play specifically, and I want to break down that play, that 3rd and 8. Darius Slay just got hit in the head, and so he'd been out for that entire series, and so everybody was like, "Why is Nate Gary being singled up?" Well, Rodney McLeod had to cover Jalen Mills on that side, and they were playing cover 2, in a sense, cover 6 in a sense, but they still had responsibilities. But there was just a lot of breakdowns, man. There were a lot of breakdowns, and then like on a 3rd and 9, Fletcher Cox and Malik Jackson jumped offside, so it was a 3rd and 4. There's just a lot of breakdowns, and then to top it all off, Big Ben was just locked in. I mean, there were some throws that Big Ben made, and I don't like making that the like excuse for a D coordinator, but I mean, it's not as if they didn't get pressure on Ben Roethlisberger. They got pressure. They sacked him a few times.
Once.
I think one got pulled back off penalty, but I mean, I don't know. I think they generated pressure. He got the ball out really quick, and Big Ben had a really good game plan. I don't know. There's just no way they can move on. This defense isn't in any way better shape without Schwartz this year than with they're not better without him than with him. That's
all right. Hey, let's get your thoughts. I'm ready to hear what you got to say about it too. I don't know. I think it's just I always feel like I always hear these stats because first of all, it was the first time the Steelers scored 30 plus since 2018. Like that, I feel like I hear that mixed with Jim Schwartz's defense way too much for my liking since the Super Bowl. But again, let's hear it, Ed. Let's see what you got to say. Let's hear your thoughts.
I mean, listen, I think Schwartz's fatal flaw is that he just plays favorites. You know, he falls in love with guys like Jalen Mills. I mean, Jalen Mills to me did not play a very NFL style cornerback against the Steelers. I don't think he was very good.
It's terrible.
You know, but Jim loves him. You know, he was asked about the rookies. Are Sean Bradley or Kayvon Wallace ready to play more of a role? And he said when they're ready, they'll be in there. So clearly he doesn't trust his rookies, but he trusts Marcus Epps, who, to me, another guy who shouldn't be on the field other than special teams. I mean, he played over 70% of the snaps. He made 1 tackle. Kayvon Wallace played 13 snaps and made 3 tackles. I mean, I know tackles aren't the be-all, end-all. There's more that goes into it. But to me, if you're Jim, you have to trust the guys that are given to you and not play favorites. I mean, you have to start to see what other guys can do because to me, he's not. To me, I don't think he's really. I don't think he's doing that good of a job calling the plays. I think he misses Malcolm I think when you talk about that 3rd and 8 play to Claypool when Gary's matched up on him, I think Malcolm Jenkins probably recognizes that. I don't know why Rodney McLeod didn't switch out of that defense or do something different, get out of the quarters defense. I mean, that's the safety's job to do that. And Jim was asked, well, why don't you take a timeout? I asked him during his press conference, well, why wouldn't you take a timeout? You have to run that through Doug. And he said, Doug is in charge of all the timeouts. He goes, we have to execute the play that's called. And the play that was called, obviously, you could see it wasn't going to work. We, in the press box, we're like, why is Nate Gary lined up on Chase Claypool 10 yards away from him? I mean, that was a disaster. And I think we've just seen Jim's defenses. He's not doing a good job of stopping these misdirections. We saw the Rams kill them with the misdirections. We saw the Steelers use their wide receivers in the jet sweeps. They can't stop that. I think this team probably needs a new voice. I don't think it's going to be Doug. I think Doug gets another year. But I could certainly see if this defense doesn't turn itself around a little bit. I mean, you can't give up 38 points to a Steelers team like Connor said that hasn't given that up in 23 straight games. I mean, that's an embarrassment. Whether Jim's making the right calls or he doesn't have the personnel. If it's personnel, you got guys on the bench that Howie drafted. Let's see what they can do. You can't say it's personnel if you're resistant to change the personnel. So it falls on Jim. And I think that there could be a change. I mean, I really do. I think that if this thing doesn't get turned around and this defense doesn't play better, then I think Jim could be the guy that goes, because I don't think Howie's going and I don't think Doug's going.
Yeah, I don't want Dan Quinn though. That's for sure. I don't want Dan Quinn.
They're just this defense is, because I'm not happy. I'm not like, they just gave up 38 to Big Ben, and I said this was a good matchup. Like I was like, man, I think they could get after Big Ben. They should be able to get pressure. He sits in the pocket.
Yeah. And that's the problem with Jim's defense. Sorry, Tyler. I just think that he puts so much emphasis on that front 4 or 5, and if they're not getting home,
I agree.
Then that exposes the back end, and the back end isn't real strong. I mean, you need to have representative play at all levels.
The real issue is
like he's trying to. It sounds like he's trying to cop out of personnel decisions too. And I'm like,
he's always done that. He's always done that in pressers. I know there's a lot of scrutiny in these pressers now because the team's struggling, but Jim has always said, leave personnel decisions to Howie or Doug. He's always said that. At least, or correct me if I'm wrong, Ed, but at least in the ones that I've tuned into,
it does seem like he does say
he's
that.
been pretty consistent with that. So I don't. And Jim is also somebody who's owned up to, like, against when they played Cincinnati, he was like, "Yo, that's just on," or against the Rams. He was like, "Yo, that's just on me. Like I had a bad game plan." So I mean, the scrutinizing press conferences could be all over the place.
Ed, I was going to ask you, because it kind of led into him saying that, kind of goes a little bit into what Jeff McLean is reporting on 97.5. I don't know if you heard it, when he's saying that Howie has say on the inactives, actives, the personnel decisions, and then there's been reports out there stating the same, that he has say on who plays and who doesn't. I mean, you cover the team. Is that anything you would come across?
Yeah, I don't know where that information that he got came from. I don't know if it's true or false. If it's true, then that's something Jeffrey Lurie needs to handle, because I don't think your general manager, who's an analytics guy and is beholden to analytics, should be deciding who's playing. I mean, that's the coach's job. I mean, you build the roster as the GM, you decide who the 53 players are, and then you turn it over to the coach. So if that's a true report, and I don't have any indication that it is or isn't, then Jeffrey Lurie needs to attack that and talk to his general manager and make sure he understands that that's not your role. That's what we have a head coach for.
I agree. I mean, I've heard GMs have say in it. I don't think I've heard.
They should be involved in the combos.
Yeah,
I mean,
if
a player's being,
maybe on the inactives. I'm not sure who plays. I mean,
I think this is classic Philadelphia being frustrated. It's they're 1-3-1, and it's trying to dissect why they're 1-3-1, and a lot of the fan base is upset with Howie Roseman, and a lot of the fan base is upset with Jim Schwartz, and I think a lot of the blame is going to go to those two right now. And I'm a big defender of Howie Roseman, and I mean, there's definitely things that he has not been great at, and then same thing with Jim Schwartz. I mean, you made a lot of good points, Ed. It's not as if I don't want to sit here and make it seem like I'm on the Jim Schwartz bandwagon, but I do think that there is context to everything, and I think Big Ben played a hell of a freaking game, and I think people need to understand that. I mean, when you find a hot quarterback, and the 30-point statistic, well, they didn't have Big Ben for most of the year last year. And again, I'm not saying that allowing 38 is okay, because it's not. But when you lose, I don't know. I mean, that last play that was dissected for Nate Gary on that 3rd and 8. I mean, they were out of Darius Slay there, so the safety had to cover corners too, and it would have been a very easy thing for them to attack with Juju or with Deontay Johnson against a backup corner. What was that, Craig James? Who was the backup corner? Yeah, like, I mean, and he was getting cooked. I mean, he got a lucky PI. Like Chase Claypool, they called that PI where he didn't even actually push off.
It was a badly officiated game, really.
It was. You're not wrong. There was a lot of bad, yeah.
Yeah, Moira there just brought up a good point, too, that as far as the defense goes, I mean, it is undisciplined when you have these offside penalties. I mean, there's not even any really fans in the stands. I mean, I know Steelers had 4,800 people in the stands, and I think they were piping in some noise, too, so that might have impacted it. But it's not like you have 70,000 people there waving their terrible towels. You shouldn't have these lining up offsides penalties. I think there were 9 penalties called against the Eagles, and 8 of them came on defense. And you know, you could question some. That PI on Darius Slay in the end zone, you know, that ball was headed out of bounds. I've watched it several times. Bad call. But I just think that a lot of those, and I don't know the number, but Moira's right. They had a lot of offsides. Just undisciplined play, and maybe some of that comes because Jim does put a lot of pressure on his defensive line to get home. So they're doing whatever they can. They're trying to get every advantage that they can to get home because they are the engine that drives that defense. And if it's not getting home, you see what happens. They give up a lot of points.
Are we expecting Will Parks to be back anytime soon? I feel like the answers are always so vague.
Well, I think he'll be back this weekend. They're going to wait and see how he practices this week. Last week we saw him on a side field working out. Today we saw Avonte Maddox on a side field kind of doing some light jogging, which is a good sign. So he's on IR. I think this will be the 3rd week that he misses, so he could potentially be activated after this weekend if he's ready. That would certainly help. You know, is he better than Jalen Mills? Probably at corner, and then maybe you can move Jalen back to safety. And then Will Parks, I think there's a good chance he plays Sunday if he can get through this week of practice. I didn't notice what he was. I didn't check his name on the injury report today, but I don't know if you guys saw it. Let's see.
I didn't even. I don't think it's probably said limited, to be honest with you.
For who?
Will Parks.
For Will Parks.
I didn't see. I wish I had an answer quickly for you guys.
Yeah, he's not even on the injury report, and I guess he doesn't have to be because he's really not on the 53-man roster.
Oh,
you know, he's
sense.
kind of been he's still on IR, but he's got a 3-week window now. So, and I didn't really see him at practice because what they really show us is the wide receivers and the special teams and the quarterbacks, but the defense and the O-line are working on the other side of the field where you can't really even see them unless you have some high-powered binoculars or super power vision. So I don't know what he did in practice today, Will, but I think he'll be back. I do think he'll be back. So they've opened up 2 roster spots. They waived Casey Toohill, who was picked up by Washington.
I think if there's any week for Will Parks to come back, I mean, because I was thinking in my head, like a lot of teams will bring a 5th rusher to kind of spy Lamar. They don't have a linebacker to do that. Maybe Alex Singleton, maybe because he's fast. But to me, in my head, I was like, Will Parks. That's a role for Will Parks to just kind of be that 5th rusher to kind of just spy Lamar. Like, how else do you like? I'm curious to see Jim Schwartz's game plan going into this game.
That's a good point.
Because I don't know how the hell you defend Lamar Jackson. He's so damn good. He's fast.
You have to put a spy on him. Somebody's gonna have to be the spy.
You got to put your corners on islands, and I think you definitely just stuff the box.
Four running backs.
Yeah, dude, J.K. Dobbins is nuts, and I watched the Ravens against the Bengals, and I don't know why Mark Ingram's even seeing snaps. J.K. Dobbins.
J.K. Dobbins is a bruising, rolling. But I mean,
he's fast too.
The Eagles considered him.
In the second round, he was there, and they took Jalen.
I do think he's one of the people, but you know who they really should have took? They really should have took Jeremy Chin. But let's move on.
Yeah.
What? How do you think the Eagles match up against the Ravens defense? I think that's a good segue into it. Now we can talk about the matchup this weekend since Tyler already started off. I agree with this comment here, though. Don't underestimate our line. Don't underestimate my line. I'm excited to see it. They could maintain. That's some Derek Barnett is good against the run.
The only thing that scares me is the lack of discipline. This team is so upfield, and Lamar is so good at finding a crease in one of the gaps, and that's the one thing. You almost have to bring a fifth rusher against him, and I don't know. I don't know.
Play discipline. You have to play discipline against a quarterback that can move, and the Eagles have shown that they just aren't very disciplined on defense right now. I mean, we see it with these. I mean, wide receivers lead, in rushing yards against the Eagles. I mean, they give up a lot of yards to these wide receivers on these sweeps and these reverses, and the Eagles aren't disciplined against that. You see, Derek Barnett or Josh Sweat crashing down, and the play's going outside of them. They're not setting the edge. They're not aware of the play that's going to go outside. And then they all bite on the play action. I don't know whether they're trying to do too much or what the case is, but that 58-yard run that Ray McLeod had, there was nobody on that side of the field. They had two defenders out there, and they were both blocked. I'm surprised he didn't go all the way for a touchdown. He got wrestled down at the 3. But to me, I'm not sure how this Eagles offense, to answer the question about the defense with the Ravens. I mean, the Ravens have a very good defense that probably some of the best cornerback play in the league, and they like to blitz those cornerbacks, and they like to, you look at their defense, and it almost looks like they get running starts and attack the line. They come from 3 or 4 yards off the line and get a running start upfield, and that's going to be a big challenge for an offensive line that, again, I don't want to underestimate the offensive line, but it is young. It's still growing. It's still learning how to be cohesive, and it's going to be a big challenge, just like the Steelers were. I thought they held up well, more or less, against the Steelers. I mean, they put up 29 points on that Steelers defense, which is pretty darn good. So I think the offense is finding itself a little bit. I think they can score points on the Ravens, but they're going to have to be creative in some of the ways that they do it. And I think we saw a little bit of creativity in these installs that I mentioned earlier today at practice today that I can't mention what they were, but there were some interesting designs on some of the plays.
Breaking news on the stream: the Eagles are getting creative. We can't tell you how, but they are.
They were getting creative with Adrian Killens on the jet sweep in an install a couple weeks ago, and then it lost 12 yards. So, doing it in practice and then making it work in the game, two different things.
Yeah, that is definitely true, my friend. But it's funny, Dakota's already waving the white flag. Marquise Brown is going to have a 40-yard end around touchdown.
Yeah. The cool thing about the Ravens is they don't have much after Marquise in the receiving game other than Mark Andrews.
No. And I don't think he's been playing that great this year either. He hasn't been playing the level that but again, he's going up against Snake Gary, and so
right, yeah. Slay should follow Marquise. He should, in theory, if he plays.
So, has Tyler Higbee scored another touchdown since he's been to Philadelphia? Does anybody know?
Probably not. If so, it's probably one.
He got his season allotment against Philadelphia. Huh? That's a shame.
Speaking of the Ravens, though, their pass rush I think is beatable. Actually, I think Calais Campbell will give the Eagles front.
They bring cover zero more than anybody in the league. They do not bring much pressure. You're so right. They do not generate pressure if they're not blitzing. But it's funny. We talked about Travis Fulgham in the slot. They have the best slot corner in Marlon Humphrey.
I think Fulgham lined up in a couple different spots. I think he lined up at X, at the Z. I think
he lined up everywhere. Yeah, he was everywhere.
Yeah, so I think you don't want to pigeonhole him to just the slot.
You're right.
And it's kind of interesting to see him do that because, these guys that have come in here, Matt Collins, J.J. Ortega-White, they've struggled to learn like one position, and they're trying to force feed them all three. And Fulgham comes in. He's been here, 2 months, and he's already knows all three positions.
Somebody said that. I think it was Michael Kist. He said, like, I'm tired of hearing about like a receiver coming in and not getting playing time because he's cross training when Travis Fulgham was here 4 months ago, and now he's playing his route. You're so right. Like, sorry, I shouldn't pin him just to the slot. He didn't. He played left side, right side, slot.
I think it was more of your surprise that he played the slot well.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe it. And you're exactly right. We're so used to either Jordan Matthews has to play here, Nelson Aguilar has to succeed here in the slot. And then we finally see a receiver that goes on each point of the field and he dominates. And we haven't really seen much creativity on Doug's part, I think, because we always hear about, we want to move these guys around. We want to rotate them around. We want to you see it, but it's just so rare. And then Travis Fulgham goes out against Pittsburgh and he's all over the field. But, the catches this guy made. Again, this is turned into the Travis Fulgham podcast, but I could not believe he played that well. I think we're all still in shock, but I think the Ravens defense was, Matthew Judon is a good pass rusher, but he's really their really most feared pass rusher. Outside of that, it's Calais Campbell's going to eat up space. I'm not too concerned about the Ravens pass rush against the offensive line this week. I was more concerned about Pittsburgh than I would be about their front.
Yeah, it's just the blitzing that concerns you. It's just the
Blitz.
zero,
and that's communication with the O-line. That's communication.
But Pittsburgh sacked Wentz 5 times. They got to him 5 times. That's not good.
And also what Pittsburgh was great at was disguising. I don't know if you guys remember in the first half, but there was like a 3-man rush and Wentz was so confused and he got rid of it in like a second and a half. And it was like, bro, you got so much time. Yeah. I think you're going to see a lot of mixed looks from Baltimore because when you can bring so much pressure with your secondary, it can cause a lot of confusion for an O-line, especially in an inexperienced O-line like the Eagles.
Exactly. So, the Ravens know that Jordan Mailata is starting his 3rd game and played rugby 3 years ago. They know all about the Eagles' offensive line, and they're going to test it.
But they're good against the run, so I wouldn't expect like a heavy dose of miles unless the run game works early on. So we need a good game.
I think they could beat Baltimore. I do think they can win this game. I think it really
comes down to just if they can guard Lamar or not, and we should know that within the first quarter.
Oh yeah, you'll know that in the first quarter. If he starts getting loose, then it's like, all right, this is gonna be a long day. But yeah, I think they could beat them as long as they continue Lamar because I don't think the Ravens passing game's been that good this year. So
no, it hasn't. It hasn't. Lamar's taken a lot of heat for that. I think he was like 19 for 37 last week, and he said he had a stomach ache. He had some sickness there, but. You're right. And I don't know. I think Tyler said it that the receivers, they're just not there for him, outside of, Hollywood Brown and their tight end, maybe Nick Boyle, Mark Andrews, those guys. But, it's a team that likes to run the ball and control the clock. And that's something the Eagles only ran 59, I think, offensive plays in Pittsburgh. They only had the ball for 25 minutes. The Steelers ran away with time of possession. And that's a problem, too, when it comes down to the running game. When the Eagles had the running back by committee approach, they controlled the ball. They led the league in time of possession or were top 2, top 3 for a number of years under Doug. And now we're not seeing that. But that's what the Ravens like to do, like to control the clock, win the time of possession, limit the opportunities for the offense, the other team's offense, and they like to win games that way.
I do wonder if this Eagles offense kind of lacks an identity. I feel like in 2017 they kind of had that identity of just being, hey, you know what, we're stubborn, we're still going to run the ball, and they stretched the field vertically. They could, but at the end of games, they were running the ball down teams' throats, and they even did it in the Super Bowl. Even when they had success with Nick Foles, they were still running the football well. And
they were top 3 in the league in rushing that year.
Yeah,
they were.
And I think that. It's been an issue with Doug since he's got here. You have to question, are you getting away from the run too quickly, even when it's not had success?
Yeah.
Dakota's about to be in the leader house for this Darius Slay jersey so far because these questions I've been coming across, I'm like, I don't know. I haven't really seen any I want a Darius Slay jersey questions.
We've seen Miles Sanders on a wheel route. Carson Wentz just missed him.
Yeah.
What was that?
We haven't seen it a lot though. It was against the Rams. or Cincinnati. It might have been
I think it was
Cincinnati.
against the
Yeah, I
Bengals.
think it was. Yeah, I think it was Cincinnati. But I still haven't seen it a lot though. I mean, that was one of the things that Miles Sanders really was the Eagles' best vertical threat last year, outside of Sean Jackson's one game.
He was asked about that today, Miles, and he, and it's the same reason they're giving for Zach Ertz. He gets a lot of attention, and that's why he's not getting open. And that's why Miles today says that it's because the linebackers are hitting him off the line, defensive ends are chipping him, linebackers are playing closer to the line, more attention's being given to him. He's being tailed by other defenders, kind of like the spy situation with Lamar Jackson that we mentioned earlier. He's saying that that's one of the issues, is that now he's, last year in the league, he said he kind of took it by surprise. People weren't ready for him, and now this year they're playing him differently. And I hate that excuse, to be honest with you. I hate the Zach Ertz can't get open excuse because he's getting more attention. I mean,
that's BS.
Yeah, your job as a coach is to find ways to get him open, to find a way, and they're not finding a way. If this is their excuse or their reason, then it's just not washing for me, because that's a coaching situation. If a player feels like he can't get in a position to be successful, then you have to ask the coach, well, how come? Why aren't I being successful? You have to put him in a better position. Andy Reid talks about it all the time, right? We got to do a better job. We got to put him in better position, and that's what they got to do. If Miles is complaining that, he's getting all this attention and Zach's getting all this attention, we'll find a way to beat it.
Period.
So somebody said in the comments too, Philadelphia, where the coaching never knows how to adjust. And that's been since Chip Kelly. The common theme here is that these coaches aren't adjusting that well. I think it's been one of my hugest thing on Doug is biggest knock on Doug so far is not being able to really structure well outside of structure. Like not really able to handle outside of structure well. When things don't go to his script, things start a little going bad. But I'm not giving up on Doug Peterson though. Don't take those comments as me saying.
And that's why you have assistants. You have assistant coaches to get in your ear and say, this is what we need to do. This is what we're seeing in the press box, or this is what we're seeing on the sideline. It's not just Doug. It's his staff that needs to help him too. Learn to adjust in game.
And again, beating man. Beat man. Like,
yeah.
You even see a guy like Julio Jones, like, he's just in every different position on offense. I just feel like Zach Ertz is way too talented for them to just say, hey, we're just going to line you up here and you just beat your man. He's been a favorite target. Like, find some ways to scheme him open. And Zach Ertz is still getting open, by the way. He's not all of a sudden just lost his talent. Like he's
I thought
still good.
Pittsburgh was the most time I've seen him open, to be honest with you.
Carson missed him high. And that's another thing with Zach is the chemistry between the two of them. Where did it go? I just don't understand.
Completely out the window. It's so crazy.
I think it's a personal thing for Ertz. I think he really is upset, and I think it's affecting his game.
Yeah, it's a shame.
That's frustrating. It's frustrating because we've been vocal fans. We are fans of Zach Ertz. He's a great player, great dude.
Yep.
Huge reason why there's a Lombardi in Philadelphia.
Oh, absolutely.
Pivotal reason.
Yeah.
And this season, we were all talking about before we even got into the season on this podcast, we were always talking about how he's going to take the Eagles reception record this year. Now I don't know. He's not really part of the game plan at any point this season. Even week one, even when Dallas Goedert was healthy, have I ever felt this season, was even besides that touchdown, because that touchdown in Washington was like the last read, I felt that Zach Ertz has been a part of the game plan?
And I'm looking at the stats here, and Zach Ertz he leads the team in receptions with 19, which that comes as a surprise for me. Next is Greg Ward with 18.
Fulgham will be the leader after this year.
Fulgham's at 12, so he's not that far off in 2 games. Fulgham's at 12 in 2 games, right?
Yeah, Fulgham's at 12.
So yeah, he's gonna catch up real quick.
I can't believe he's leading the team with 19. Zach Ertz leads it. That's stupid.
Yeah, but the yardage probably. Yeah.
Oh my god!
Yardage,
I think he's only got like 150 or something like that.
I like this comment from Craig.
Hold on, I might have given you bad info there. I'm looking at last week's book.
I don't think it changed much though, unless Greg Ward changed it. I don't think
Zach had one catch. last
Yeah,
week.
Greg Ward had 2 catches though, so he might lead the team now. Then with 20,
He
I don't know
does.
how many Ertz had because I
Greg
don't
Ward,
remember.
sorry, redo, correction. Is that Greg Ward's got 22 catches, Ertz has 20, and Goddard 13. Yeah, I was looking at it, and Fulgham wasn't even in there. Fulgham had 2. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not right. So now Fulgham's at 12, so he's 4th most in receptions. But, Zach's yardage total, it looks like to me, is 2nd on the team behind Fulgham, who leads now at 209. And then Greg Ward's got 172 and Zach's got 145. So Zach's 3rd in yardage behind Fulgham and Ward. It's surprising because, he really hasn't been that involved, and he needed how many catches coming in? 65 to break Carmichael's reception record in a career. So he's got 20. So he needs 45 more over the last 13 games here. Is that what it is? 13? 12.
Yeah.
12.
Yeah. But oh man.
That
11.
tie.
Some people are even questioning if you should just trade him at the trade deadline.
11. Yeah, it is 11. Jesus.
It's late, guys. Our minds are fried. Well, I think that's a good point, Connor, because you wonder if they would trade him with Dallas Goedert being out. I mean, are you going to trade Zach Ertz when you don't have Goddard and turn your tight end over to Richard Rodgers and Jason Kroom? I mean, that'd be tough for Howie to.
It depends. It just depends where you're at in the season. Where
a mid-season tight end trade has occurred, like a big one. I don't know if that'll happen. I mean, I could see a receiver, like a big name receiver, being traded. I just don't see, even if the Eagles are sellers, I don't think that there would be a team like, hey, we got to go get Zach Ertz at the trade deadline. I think that would be more of a.
There might be
next year, but we'll see.
We will. I mean, I just think if this season keeps going the way it's going with Zach Ertz, and you go into this offseason and you do try to trade him, I can't imagine what teams would offer you at that point.
Yeah. There will be teams. I mean, Zach Ertz, like adding another receiver. I mean, that's his forte is catching.
Oh, there'll be interest. I think when you look at the Eagles situation, the teams are going to be like, well, your cap sucks. You need picks, and you want to invest in Dallas Goedert, obviously. So, yeah, we're not going to give you that much. That's what I feel like it's going to be. And then look what happened with Zach Ertz this past season. You guys completely showed the NFL that you're trying to lean off him now. So why would we offer you that much for a guy that you might be at the position of taking your best offer?
Yeah, it's a tricky situation. There's no doubt. I just don't think he'll get moved at the deadline, and I think Dallas Goedert's probably a big reason for that. I don't think Dallas will be healthy by the time the deadline comes up, and I don't think Howie's going to, kneecap his team that badly and run Richard Rodgers and Jason Kroom out there. To be honest.
And I'm not promising anything, but all it takes is Ertz to have 3 really good games for fans to be like, hey, well, maybe there should be
winning cures everything. If they start winning, I think it'll even help Zach out too. And if he does well in those wins, I think it just changes a lot.
He needs a big game for his mental.
I'm going to predict right now a big game for Zach Ertz on Sunday. I'm going to call the over-under on receptions at 6. I'm going to set the over-under at receptions at 6.
I like that.
All right.
I
like it.
He scores a touchdown too.
I like that. I'm taking the under.
So yeah, I'm taking under too. But Aaron Pugan asks, and I think this is a good question. I mean, this might be a contender now, because again, now we all know Dak Prescott's out. The NFC East is bad as usual. Washington with Kyle Allen, I don't even consider them a threat anymore at all. Do you guys think the Eagles can turn things around if, and that's a big if, everyone comes back healthy? I'm talking about Reagor, Goddard, Isaac Sayamalu, and Avonte Maddox. I mean, I think with the way the NFC East, like I just said, the way it's shaping up, I mean, you can win it maybe at 7-8-1 now. So it's not out of the realm of possibilities even when get these guys back. That's just an extra boost.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's probably one of the biggest things I'm disappointed about with this season is not being able to watch Jalen Reagor progress. I was really looking forward to seeing how he got better each week, how they used him each week. And, we were kind of robbed of that, obviously. But now he's going to come back off of this injury. How long is it going to take him to find his legs? He's not just going to step right in and, be a star, I don't think. It'll be another building up process. So I think it will definitely help in a division that's not real strong. And you mentioned Isaac Sayamalu. I think getting him back would allow you to move Nate Herbig back over to the right side and put Matt Pryor back on the bench. And then I think your line's stronger. I think even with Jason Peters, if Peters were to come back at this point, you wonder if they wouldn't try to put him at guard because to me, Matt Pryor's a liability on that line.
I didn't even think about that
at this point. So, I think Siamalu would help. I don't know what the other players you mentioned. Maddox, I think, would certainly help. It would just give you a little bit more depth too to use.
Goddard would definitely help. I think that's another receiving option.
Maddox helps because it helps out the safety position. We don't have to see Marcus Epps more. I mean, I'm not even trying to be like a hater, but I mean, he's a liability. I mean, Nate Gary's getting a lot of slack, but Marcus Epps deserves just as much slack. He's not had a good season at all. When I see 22 on the field, I get a little nervous.
I know.
So, I mean, Maddox's injury is hurting because it's affecting two positions. Mills hasn't been good at corner, and the safety position's hurting. So, Maddox returning will be huge. And, I mean, Connor hit it. The division sucks. I mean, the division sucks. And football is football. If a team can catch heat at the right time, anything can happen. Like, I don't care what.
Yeah, you got to get in, right? You got to get in the tournament to win. And you have a chance.
We're in week 5. I understand everybody wants to blow teams out by 30, and it sucks we're having this conversation 3 years in a row. I don't like to have it. I would love to be 4-1. At the end of the day, I mean, if you catch heat, you get into the playoffs, anything can happen, especially if you have a really good quarterback. And Carson Wentz is a good quarterback, and if he gets in a rhythm, you got a chance. We'll see.
That was a good question, Connor. Whoever asked that was a good question.
I think that's the contender. Yeah, I think Aaron Puga probably is going to start winning.
My vote was for Key just because of how involved she was at first.
Good question.
She was.
But she didn't ask questions. She was just commenting, and I loved it.
She asked a couple questions though. She did ask a couple questions that was good, but she did actually. I mean, hey, it's everybody. It's our votes. This is our decision, and it sounds like you guys are leaning towards Key.
Key's in my vote. Key's top 2 for me. Key was always in the back of my head. I was like, man, she kind of deserves it for her involvement. But.
All right. Well, I'm going with the most recent question, so that puts it on you, Connor, to break the tie. Thank God I don't have to do that.
Oh man, Key's probably watching. Aaron's probably still watching right now. Oh, I gotta go with Key on this one there because she brought the whole interaction in. She brought questions in though. She did ask questions. I just scrolled up. She asked like 3 questions. Not only that, she brought a whole Twitch community in here.
Did she? Yeah.
She posted it all in there. So I think
that's it. She was involved, man.
Cool, man. Congratulations, Key.
Yeah, you know what? I'll be fair. We'll help you out too, man. Hit us up on Eagles Brawl.
That's what we do.
Yeah. I think we're gonna make some day. I think we should give it to 2. I think it's gonna be Key and Aaron. Reach out to us on Eagles Brawl. We'll make it happen for you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. I did not mean Ed and Tyler to take up your whole entire night. We went an hour 18 minutes into it. I can't believe it. Great job with you guys sticking with us and everybody else tuning in as well. And all the questions and Giovanni coming on was awesome. Ed, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk before the game. I'm sure we'll do another little quick pod before the game. So we'll get more focus on Baltimore as the week progresses. But thank you guys for tuning in.
Twitter too. I mean, I like to answer fans' questions on Twitter as long as they're not.
We all know that. Do we have to even announce that? You're the best. You're the most interactive beat writer there is out there. If everyone doesn't know that by now,
you always have been, Ed. For real.
Yeah, I've never. I mean, have I ever had a question
from the jump, man? You've always just It's
for someone that has your number. I mean, like, to text you and ask you answer right away too, and then you're like, yeah, I'll talk to you about this subject real quick. And then I feel re-energized to talk about it in the podcast because I know that you feel the same way. So Ed's always the biggest help, guys. If you have any Eagles questions, go ahead. Just go ahead and and then Craig even said it here too. Ed is why I'm here. You gotta love it, man.
Yeah, I voted for Craig's question. I don't remember what it was, but thanks, Craig.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks.